Hey guys, a week or so ago I uploaded a video to YouTube about, it was an experience that I had with Introverted Intuition. I am an INTJ personality, and so my lead psychological function is Introverted Intuition. And I've been fascinated by the topic of intuition and introverted intuition, especially because it's what I use, and I've been trying to figure out when I use it and try to notice what it actually is so that I might be able to explain it to people. And so I started noticing different times when I would have symbols or whatever in my mind helping me understand things or make decisions with how to act. And then I finally had an experience where the intuition was so important that I remembered to remember it. And as soon as I had the experience, I went down. I was living in my parents' house at the time. I went down and told my dad about it. He's an introverted sensing type, so he's an ISTJ, and my mom was there too. She's an INFJ, and she said, "Oh, that's interesting." And my dad said, "Huh, I wonder if there's a way you could prove that that's happening." And so it seemed it was interesting that the other introverted intuitive dominant personality kind of thought, oh yeah, interesting, cool. And the SI Dom was thinking, like, what on earth? So I decided to eventually create a video that showed exactly what happened, and that's the video that I created a week or so ago and uploaded. So I'm just going to explain. Well, first I'll show you what it is right now.
It's had them out of the workforce for a couple of years, so it's very bad overall. In fact, there are studies that show that if you take a course in economics, your knowledge of economics a couple of years later is worse than people who've never taken a course in economics. So,
what? Oh. So, there you go. So, let me explain what happened. I was watching Stefan Molyneux's explanation of, I think, the education bubble about student debt, and he said that there's a study where I haven't read the study myself, but this is just what happened. There's a study. He said there's a study where people were measured, their understanding of economics were measured beforehand and then after. And what happened in between is some of them took a course in economics. And 2 or 3 years after the course, the ones that had taken the course had a worse understanding of economics than those who never took the course. So that was a contradiction to me. I feel like, I mean, the minimum of the people who took the course, the worst case scenario is they stayed the same, but they actually were worse. So that was a contradiction to me, and it didn't match reality at all, according to how I thought of courses in school. And so I had to pause and think about it, and I leaned back in my chair and I thought of that scenario. So every time I hear things, I guess I import it into my brain and I think about the concept of what's happening. So you've got people that go through process and they end up worse, and it's unexpected, and you're in education. So I've got all these things floating in my mind, and all I do is sit back and feel those things, and then a solution pops up. And I just trust Oh, that's my stupid automatic light. Let me turn it back on. Yeah. There it is. Okay. Sorry about that. So I just trust that that if an answer is possible, that it will show up. And so and it usually does. And if it doesn't, I pace around and I keep thinking, twirling these things around in my brain, trying to remember different things, pull more into the soup, and then just keep stirring. And something pops out almost always. And I actually see what happens, what comes out as a result. Especially if it's something closely related to things, and maybe not people. Although I kind of conceptualize people as things too. I don't know. I think I usually see everything. I understand everything in terms of images, like graphs or just everything. So what I saw in my mind is literally what I put in the video. I actually coded the app where you touch the button and it turns orange and then goes away. So what I saw first was that. The peripherals might have been blurry. It didn't matter what I was actually seeing. I just remember the thing of touching the thing twice and having it change state once, then disappear. And then right after that, I saw a whiteboard with foggy ink left over from past whatever, and an eraser going over some letters, and the letters leaving behind a wider background than the surrounding space of the whiteboard. And as soon as that image appeared in my head, and by the way, it was much faster in my mind than in my video. It was maybe 3 times faster. Just as soon as I saw that, I had a feeling of understanding. And I understood it in my brain. It takes a lot of work to translate that into words. Obviously, I mean, imagine if you're not an intuitive type, you translating that into words is about, and understanding what the heck it means in the first place is almost as difficult as it is for me to translate it into words. But for me it works. I have a working understanding of the concept, because every time I hear something I translate it into a symbol for my brain to work with. And everyone's brains will do this, but they don't perceive it. So I mean, this is how the human brain works. It uses symbols, but and in order to see them, you have to suppress other things that your brain is doing. So that's why and sensation is so salient that or dominant. It's such a powerful experience that only few people suppress it and focus on the symbols themselves. So let me explain what this meant, what the solution was. So I'm going to translate the symbols into words. This is a lot of the time why INTJs have a hard time communicating with people, because anything interesting will involve symbols in their minds, and then they have to convert them into words that people can understand. And occasionally when I'm talking to another INTJ, they'll just get what I'm trying to say, because it will trigger a very similar symbol in their mind, and they will show evidence that they see other aspects of the symbol, and then I will understand that they have the full symbol in their mind, and it's difficult to transmit it with the full description of verbally. So anyway, the translation. I really need to replace that. I don't know what the people who lived here were thinking before. It's great for a bathroom or like a main room, but like it's around the corner. Anyway, so let me translate that into words. So basically what the buttons, I didn't actually care. I kind of discarded that one right after. It was like a path to the whiteboard image. So I discarded it, but what I think it means is the blue things are like places where students can be, or people in general. And the first state change is when the person takes the course, and then the second state change is when they forget stuff. So it just gets the general concept. That might be the translation of what I heard into a symbol. I don't know, it's complicated. But the whiteboard captures everything. Because what happened is, so let me explain what it represents. I didn't get this full representation when the image came to my mind, but I knew that it contained the information that I needed to solve the paradox. So the fog on the whiteboard that was already there was people's pre-existing knowledge of economics. Someone writing on the fog is someone giving instruction about economics. And then the eraser is time passing. So what happens is when you write on a whiteboard that's foggy, I think the alcohol, I think that's what's in it. I'm ignorant about a lot of really basic stuff, but the chemical inside the marker will kind of it's a solvent, I think that's the right word. It will break loose the particles of ink that were there before and kind of join them together. So now the new particles that came from the marker are now connected to the ones that were already there. And this is like a teacher saying, okay, today we're going to talk about supply and demand. And then all your knowledge about supply and demand coming to the forefront of your mind. And then them telling you some things about supply and demand. And then you connecting them to your pre-existing knowledge. Okay? So that's the state that it now is in. Your pre-existing knowledge is inseparable from the new things that you've learned. Okay? But time passes. For the people who took the course, they forgot over time, while those who didn't forget. What kinds of things do you forget? The things that you don't think about very often. Why wouldn't you think about things very often? If you don't want to, or if it doesn't apply, or you are confused about it, or if it makes you uncomfortable. So the thing that I learned is that in economics courses, they must be teaching things in a way that makes students not enjoy thinking about them after the course is done. That might be the context of stress when they take tests, and then the relief when it's over and now I don't have to ever think about that again and the stress is out of my life. Or it might be something completely different. But whatever it is an unpleasant experience to think about those things over time. And so they forget even what they knew before because they had connected it together. So that's my understanding. So I think and the lesson to learn from that is make sure you teach courses that people want to absorb into their lives, and teach people should learn in a way that adds to their life experience in a way that they can use and that they enjoy, so that they don't, so it's not a destructive force in their life. Because, there's no point in teaching something to somebody if it doesn't help. If it doesn't help, first of all, but if it has a negative impact, that's just insane. So Carl Jung, he was the original guy that came up with the psychological types. So, and I highly recommend reading Psychological Types. Nobody goes as deep as he does. It is really, really incredible, the kinds of things that you learn and the crazy stuff that he says in this book. So, let me read some stuff and explain it, how it relates. Intuition in the introverted attitude is directed upon the inner object, a term we might justly apply to the elements of the unconscious. For the relation of inner objects to consciousness is entirely analogous to that of outer objects, although theirs is a psychological and not a physical reality. So, introverted intuition sees objects basically the same as people see objects in the external world, except it's inside their mind, so it's psychological. Inner objects appear to the intuitive perception as subjective images of things which, though not met within external experience, really determine the contents of the unconscious, i.e. the collective unconscious in the last resort. So they are real objects, they're just in your mind. Naturally, in their per se character, these contents are not accessible to experience, a quality which they have in common with the outer object. For just as outer objects correspond only relatively with our perceptions of them, so the phenomenal forms of the inner objects are also relative, products of their to us inaccessible essence and of the peculiar nature of the intuitive function. So it's almost like they're separate from us. We don't actually experience them, we perceive them. Like sensation, intuition also has a subjective factor, which is suppressed to the farthest limit in the extroverted intuition, but which becomes the decisive factor in the intuition of the introvert. Although this intuition may receive its impetus from outer objects, it is never arrested by the external possibilities, but stays with that factor which the outer object releases within. So that symbol that gets released within as a reaction to the outer object kind of gets followed by introverted intuition, and the intuition works within relation to that object, the original symbol that was released. Whereas introverted sensation is mainly confined to the perception of particular innervation phenomena by way of the unconscious, and does not go beyond them. Intuition represses this side of the subjective factor and perceives the image which has really occasioned the innervation. So, what happens is you sense the external object, it gets translated into a symbol or an inner object of the unconscious, and then that has significance to you and makes an impression, like physically in your brain you feel the result of that object, that symbol, the meaning of the thing. But introverted intuitives suppress that side and focus on the symbol. Supposing, for instance, a man is overtaken by a psychogenic attack of giddiness. Sensation is arrested by the peculiar character of this innervation disturbance, perceiving all its qualities, its intensity, its transient course, the nature of its origin and disappearance in their every detail, without raising the smallest inquiry concerning the nature of the thing which produced the disturbance, or advancing anything as to its content. Intuition, on the other hand, receives from the sensation only the impetus to immediate activity. It peers behind the scenes, quickly perceiving the inner image that gave rise to the specific phenomenon. i.e. the attack of vertigo in the present case. It sees the image of a tottering man pierced through the heart by an arrow. This image fascinates the intuitive activity. It is arrested by it and seeks to explore every detail of it. It holds fast to the vision, observing with the liveliest interest how the picture changes, unfolds further, and finally fades. In this way, introverted intuition perceives all the background processes of consciousness with almost the same distinctness as extroverted sensation senses outer objects. So there you go. Yeah, I can't really explain it better than that, but that's the example that I had. I really did see those things, and I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if my attention was definitely taken away from what was physically visible to me in front of my face, and I was focused completely on the objects that came from my mind, and I saw them, and yeah, it's difficult to describe because it happened inside my brain, but it's my favorite thing. I love intuition. Hopefully I will come up with more examples of introverted intuition, because I feel like I can't remember all of them, and if I document them and put them in videos, I think it'll help other people understand as well as myself. I think I'll be able to look at the patterns and look at the types of things that kind of trigger the most vivid experiences, and hopefully my sensitivity to them and my and their memorability. I don't know the word, but hopefully they become more memorable, and because I think understanding how it works will provide a lot of insight into why I think differently from other people, and why INTJs statistically have the highest IQ, and why they're so unique, and maybe how to improve other people's understandings. But it's just fascinating. Like, I love it. It's so cool. And it reminds me of artificial intelligence, and which are based off of neural networks, and so I am super interested in this. One of my ultimate interests is artificial intelligence, because I think it is the last interest. So I think this is one of the bridges. I think subjective experience is extremely undervalued in the scientific community. Introspection it's more flaky, like less reliable a lot of the time, but you can go a lot deeper and a lot farther when you introspect beyond what most people talk about. And when you read Carl Jung, just like a lot of the influential people in the past, his works are very they're far beyond what the smartest people that are interested in them talk about. they just take you really far, and it's because he was also a very insightful and thoughtful person who just pondered a lot of things deeply. And I think just like how Peter Thiel talks about, I think people like to diversify their investments in all areas in life these days. But I think there's a lot of benefit in introspecting and trying to be deterministic about the way you view the world and try to come up with truth. And being determined to find truth. So I think there's a lot of value in it. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank goodness. I feel like this is going on for a lot longer than I thought it would in the beginning. But hope this helps. If you have any questions, please ask them. And let me know if you have any examples yourself. If you're an intuitive type. Or maybe it's your tertiary function, but you've noticed something. I don't know. Anyway, let me know, and thanks for watching.